Amanda and I discuss at our 5 a.m. production show exactly what we're going to get into. And but we don't go too deep into it because I don't want to do the show in the parking lot, as somebody once said. So one of the topics du jour was certainly Tennessee and potentially running up the score. So that was discussed by the commentators on Saturday, and it hit a lot of people in a lot of different ways. Now, what's funny is I don't know that we're having this conversation, Amanda, if they don't bring it up. But let me start with that. Do you think from this? Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, David. Do you think we're having this conversation if nothing is mentioned on the television broadcast?
No, yeah, I think we are. I think we're
Okay.
still going to have the conversation no matter what.
Okay. So here is what I visited with, and this is why I want you to hit that like and subscribe button and share, because there are interviews with Cooper Mays and Jacob Warren on the YouTube page that you can listen to them in their entirety. So I thought this was incredibly honest, and this is the kind of stuff that you don't get at the press conference settings and the kind of stuff that's said in the locker room behind closed doors, but that is not said publicly. And I thought Jacob Warren was really honest and why they decided to score that late touchdown with just over 30 seconds left on the 1 yard line. Here's Jacob Warren, Tennessee tight end.
To me, the game is about winning by as much as you can. The game is about scoring as many points as you can and beating your opponent. So at the end of the day, I know there's people that are upset that we ran the score up and that we scored with 30, 40, 50. I don't know how many seconds left on the clock, but we're trying to go play in the college football playoffs. We have to win these games by as much as we can, and in the most dominating fashion that we can, and just show who we are and show that we're the best offense in the nation. And statistically, we would love to be the number one offense in the nation, which we have been. And I don't know where exactly we are now, but that includes points, that includes yards, that includes yards per catch, yards per carry, all those things, all these stats that we're trying to hit. And if that's disrespectful, then I guess you should be playing the game. I guess if you can't handle getting, I don't know.
Okay, so let me go to you, Amanda. I'll just state this, and then we can get some input from the message board, and I want to get your input too. I have zero issue when you're playing an SEC opponent, and if you want to call it running up the score or not. I never have, whether it's against Tennessee or whether it's against whoever. I think that it can come back to bite you if you do those things, if you're down and the other team's up. So it may not be in your best interest. But as far as any sort of morality, I don't have a problem. Your thoughts on teams, and Southern Cal did the same thing Friday night against Colorado. They scored a late touchdown. So your thoughts on teams scoring late. Do you have an issue with it?
I have just so many things to say on this one. So, first, there's a difference between throwing a, 40-yard bomb down the field with so many seconds left to go or a minute to go when you're up by 40 points or 30 something points.
So you don't have an issue with necessarily the play at the one as much as plays before that. Is that
correct?
Okay, gotcha.
That would be there's a difference because we know second string's always going to want to play. We know that, and you shouldn't expect second string to go out there and not give it their all. But there's a difference in throwing a 40-yard bomb and just handing it off to the running back, or just throwing little passes or what have you. There's just a difference in that. It looks different. It just does. And so that's my first thing, was the 40-yard bomb was a little much, I felt like.
Let me address that one real quick. And then I want you to continue. So I hate to interrupt your train of thought. But I've always been of the Spurrier school of thought. You put the backups in, you run the same offense. So I don't have a problem with any play calling if you're running the same offense with the backups in. I got a problem with keeping your starters in till the end of the game. But that's my thoughts on that. Go right ahead.
So my thought on that is I would understand if it was Hendon Hooker throwing that bomb. I would understand more because he's going for a Heisman Trophy. Like, you want to pad his stats as much as possible because he's going for a Heisman Trophy. But the fact that it's Joe Milton in there throwing that bomb is an issue to me. Just because it's 1 minute left to go, you don't need to throw a 40-yard pass down the field. Now, second thing, you have to pick a side. You either think it's okay or you don't think it's okay. And it can't be okay when it's your team and not okay when it's Ohio State. It can't be okay when it's Tennessee and not okay when it's, Alabama or whoever else, your rival, Georgia. You have to pick one or the other. You can't have both. You can't do it both ways. So that to me is a big deal because you will have so many people every time Ohio State plays a game come out and say they run up the score, or like when Urban Meyer was coaching. Urban Meyer, that's what he does. He runs up the score. He's classless, yada, yada, yada. And then turn around and when their team does it, defend it. You can't do that. You have to stick to one side or the other.
Sure. And I'm not going to pick apart any particular fan or go on social media and look back and see if they said 2 years ago that Tennessee, somebody ran up the score in Tennessee. I have zero problem with it in terms of a coach's decision to do it, no matter who it is, whether it's Ohio State, which did so, Southern Cal, across the board. I have zero problem with it. Because of the way the system's set up. Now, if you want to talk about the way the system is set up and that the committee shouldn't even really count those points in the back of their head, or there actually used to be a margin of victory that was factored into the BCS. So you look back, it actually was part of the formula. Then if you want to say it's part of the system, that's why I like a 12-team playoff, because I don't think you have plays like this. That's a whole nother debate. But Tennessee's making it. Maybe they're not throwing it deep. So I'm not crazy about the system in that you're awarded for doing things like that, but I got zero problem with teams deciding to do it. So there's no wishy-washiness with me. I've always thought it's your responsibility to stop the other team. Now, I will make an exception. If you're playing UTC, or you're playing a Division II school, an FCS team, I get that. That's a different level of competition. But if you're an SEC team, it's your job. You're on scholarship too. You've been there every bit as long as Josh Heupel has. So in this particular case, I think it's what the system is and it's what you have to do. So I'm gonna get to the message board, but your thoughts on that?
So that's, it wasn't an attack on you. It was just
I didn't think it was.
as fans.
I didn't think it was.
Okay. Just as fans have problems when it's not their team.
I bet a burrito it was an attack on me.
Okay.
And I love
burritos. I don't want one. So fans have issues when it's a different team. They do. They have issues even if it's a team like Ohio State plays Rutgers, or they play a really bad Michigan State, or they play, when Maryland wasn't so good. Fans always had issues talking about Ohio State running up the score. Well, you can't talk about that and then turn around and defend this. That's not okay. And Ohio State was trying to get into the playoffs too. So they're trying to win by the biggest margin of victory. So it was set up. It's set up the same way. It's the exact same thing. So that's my feeling on that. You have to go one way or you have to go the other. Now, third, do you need to say something?
No, I'm good. Okay. I'm going to add a layer, but I don't want to do it until you're done.
Okay. So third, Tennessee had the margin of victory by 30-something points at that point. You won the game. No one thought you didn't dominate the game at the end. Up until halftime, yes, it was close. But after that, you won the game. Everyone knew that. Throwing a 40-yard bomb down the field with like 1 minute left is a little much. It was very Ohio State-esque. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, so my contention is you run your offense and you run what you think. You don't just run the football because you're up big. That is my contention from the get. That's my baseline. Now, let me add another layer to this. You and I were together, I think, in Atlanta, or yeah, we were in Atlanta. It was SEC Media Days when Eli Drinkwitz goes on the Jim Rome show, and as he's being introduced, it was something like this: "I would like to go my guy, Eli Drinkwitz," and before he had even been introduced, Amanda, Eli Drinkwitz thought it would be wise to work in a shot at Tennessee, who had just received their notice of allegations from the NCAA. So, was there motivation to score a little bit more because of that? Possibly, and quite frankly, I wouldn't blame Josh Heupel if there was, because and it may sound petty,
It
Amanda,
does,
but
especially
I mean,
with
I think it, if that motivated him, and I think it motivated him to score the last touchdown against a Stoops family member against Kentucky. I think we could have been having that conversation if the national broadcasters brought it up. Okay, the last touchdown they scored against Kentucky. But I think there's motivation, yes, I think he has a chip on his shoulder. And I don't have a problem with that. And especially with Eli Drinkwitz taking a shot at Tennessee during the last end of the recruiting cycle when prospects had just made their visit on a national radio show. It doesn't bother me if that's part of your motivation. Now, with all that being said, you do run the risk of infuriating the football gods. You do. That could result in an injury. That could result in maybe one day you're down and Missouri's up. Not likely, but possible. So I think that you run that risk. So pragmatically, you could say you shouldn't have done that. You should just be trying to run out the clock. But from a morality perspective, I have zero problem with it. But I'm curious.
so
Go ahead.
we talk about how mature this Tennessee team is. We talk about how humble they are. We talk about how in such a good headspace that Josh Heupel has them in. Again, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, okay, it's cool for you to be petty, but then talk about how mature and how wonderful and how humble this team is. Like you can either be petty and be good with that, or you can be humble and, full of humility and want to just, praise them for everything that they are. You can't say, okay, it's cool for this moment, you can be petty, and then next day it's not.
Because of the situation, I don't see it as petty as at all. Because of the college football committee, do you trust them that they're watching every minute of every game of every team that's involved?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, if because of Eli Drinkwitz, saying Josh Heupel could probably just tacked on that other one, and that's he can be petty. Either he can be or he can't be. Either he has the emotional maturity and these guys are humble, or they're not. There's there's one or the other.
And I don't know if that was emotion, but you do have to remember this too. These two teams are going to be recruiting against each other. So this is an opportunity to show that you're better than them. Now, how much better? We could certainly debate that. They were already a lot better before the last touchdown or before that long pass downfield. They were already a lot better. So
exactly.
I get where you're coming from. I can see if you I think today on a Monday, we would be having this conversation that Tennessee took a knee and it may have been the sportsmanlike thing to do. However, it could hurt them in the college football playoff committee's eyes. I think we could be having that conversation because, Amanda, I don't trust them. I trust you to make a better decision about who should be in the college football playoff more than them. I really do.
Well, yeah, because we don't know they're all over the place. But this, in my mind, I could argue that this hurts them in the college football playoff committee.
Well, and you may be right. And Bear or whatever, the Bear or Bear brought that up in a tweet, and Eric Ainge attacked him. And Bear brought that up. I'll be interested to see how it plays in the college football committee's mind. I'll be interested to see too. It could cut the other way. I mean, you're right. I don't think it will, but certainly you're open to that. So, your
You mean
thoughts?
you go from the feel good story of Tennessee and how, they've been portrayed in the media this season for, and for good reason. You have gospel songs by Hendon Hooker. You have all of this, doing it for faith and being humble and loving the stories of Jalen Hyatt, loving the stories of Byron Young, doing all of that. And then you turn around and then you do something like this. So I think it kind of messes with people's minds. Is all of a sudden you're not the underdog that people are pulling for. All of a sudden you're not that feel good story of the good kids and the sweet guys and the ones you want to win. All of a sudden you're the bully, tacking on another touchdown. And Tennessee versus Kentucky, they scored one touchdown, one score in the fourth quarter. And
Yeah,
this one,
but they threw it in the zone. That had a feel of I don't like the Stoops family.
And that's one thing or the other. I mean, either way, they still just scored one score in the last 15 minutes of the game. This one they've scored 17 points in the last 15 minutes of the game, with one of them coming at seconds left on the clock. And I think that is why people, right or wrong, will have a problem with it. And I believe that it changes people's perceptions of Tennessee. It sends them back to the whole daddy baseball caps and stuff. It reminds them.
Caps. I don't know what that means.
You don't know what the daddy baseball caps are?
No.
You don't know about the baseball team with the daddy hats and all that stuff?
Tennessee's baseball team. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like people hated them. They loved to hate them because they seemed like they were arrogant bullies. I mean, your football team had that completely opposite. It was a completely opposite view where people are rooting for them because of what a great story they were. And then I feel like, this is just my opinion with other people, they revert back to that baseball team where they go, okay, well now honestly it's just Tennessee's just a bunch of arrogant buttholes kind of thing.
Well, I think that there's something to be said for how you're perceived. Okay, so obviously it's a debate. I don't think we're even having this debate I really don't, and you disagree, but I don't think we're even having this conversation if not for Rick Neuheisel bringing it up and the fact that they're throwing it deep and on the 1 yard line. I have no problem with you running your offense. As far as the deep ball, if you want to take a knee on the 1 yard line, that's fine. But if you have a problem with Tennessee doing it, then I'm not saying you rhetorically, but if you have a problem with Tennessee doing it, you have to have a problem with Southern Cal doing it on Friday night. You have to have a problem with Ohio State doing it. So does it take away a little bit of the feel-good story? Yeah, I mean, perhaps. But at the end of the day, the more points they score, unfortunately, the way this system is set up, we should have had a 16-team playoff 20 years ago. Okay, in my opinion. But we don't.